Watch this.
Crews thought the only threat on the Bear Gulch fire would be from smoke and flames. It's what they didn't expect. Federal agents checking their IDs that had them worried most after they arrested 2 firefighters. The federal government has certainly called on the National Guard a lot lately. Whether it's immigration or policing, local leaders are calling it political. 20 years ago today, Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast, the most damaging storm in U.S. history. But its impact went beyond the Bayou State, clear up to the Gem State. It wasn't that long ago the Trump administration pledged Immigration Customs Enforcement would make at least 3,000 arrests a day. And while they have since walked that back, like the famous line from the movie The Fugitive, ICE has committed to checking every warehouse, farmhouse, henhouse, outhouse, and doghouse, and apparently firehouse. 2 firefighters who were working on Washington's largest wildfire are now in federal custody. The arrest happened as crews battled the Bear Gulch fire on the Olympic Peninsula. And their arrests are prompting new questions about how the situation unfolded and what it means for the crews still on the front line. Here's Bridget Chavez from our sister station in Seattle.
Behind me, you can see the smoke from the Bear Gulch fire. Federal agents confirm that 2 firefighters were arrested who were working that fire, and now state leaders want answers.
Yeah, we got pulled over by ICE.
This video shows Customs and Border Patrol agents moving in on crews working the Bear Gulch fire in the Olympic Peninsula.
It's crazy, dude.
King 5 spoke with one of the firefighters who was there. He wants to remain anonymous, but spoke with us over the phone.
We went some place that I never seen, and it was kind of weird because it's just one way, it's one way in, it's one way out.
The firefighter says he and his teammates were stunned to see federal agents.
We got members from the tribe of Umatilla, Cayuse, and Walla Walla. This is crazy, man. Look at that. Post it up.
Even more shocked when they lined them up and started taking pictures of their IDs.
Thank you, sir. Whenever you guys get a chance, exercise your tribal rights.
On me, I had my ID, but I was still thinking, man, is this enough proof?
We have a different crew over here.
He says the 2 men who were arrested are respected crew members.
They're discussing about fraud hours.
CBP confirmed the 2 men are being held at a facility in Bellingham. The agency says the 2 are in the country illegally, and one of them has a previous order of removal.
Oh yeah, they're good guys. He's been doing this for a long time. He has a lot of experience. Everyone loves him. That kid is just he just goes, and I have a lot of respect for him.
Governor Bob Ferguson says he's deeply concerned and his team is pressing federal agencies for answers. And Senator Patty Murray also criticized the move, calling it immoral and dangerous.
It's just weird, it's scary. I just want to tell people be safe, man. Like these people are just doing too much, and yeah, man, I just felt powerless.
The Bear Gulch fire has burned nearly 9,000 acres and is still only 13% contained. It's expected to burn until winter. In Mason County, Bridget Chavez, King 5 News.
Human rights advocates are now demanding an audit of all state agencies after the King 5 investigators revealed Washington's Department of Licensing was sharing data with ICE for deportation purposes. And in that state, well, that's against the law. We'll get more on that coming up on the news at 6 today. There's a Navy base just north of Chicago. In fact, it's one of the biggest naval bases we have. And lately, it's been prepping for something that sounds a lot less like training sailors and a lot more like preparing for a fight here at home. New York Times says federal officials are planning for hundreds of agents, more than 100 vehicles, and stockpiles of so-called crowd control tools. Rubber bullets, tear gas, the kind of things you don't exactly, bring or store for a picnic. While it may look like staging for an invasion of the Windy City, local leaders are worried even if it's just gearing up for possible street protests, it could threaten national security. So why would the military or the National Guard be gearing up for city streets? And what exactly can they do legally if they're called in? Here's Randy Gyllenhaal.
Just off Lake Michigan, the Navy's largest training base is preparing to host ICE and Homeland Security.
We're not going to tell you how many resources we're going to send to the city. We don't want the bad guy to know what we're sending. It'll be a large contingent.
According to the New York Times, Naval Station Great Lakes is planning for 250 federal agents, 140 vehicles, and storage for things like rubber bullets and tear gas.
This is unprecedented territory that we're in.
The military base sits in Congressman Brad Schneider's North Suburban District.
It is mission critical, and anything that is done to distract from that mission is a threat to our national security.
And he says there is no emergency for the National Guard to join in.
No matter what anyone tries to do, our Constitution is going to stand strong.
If troops arrive, it would be a 90-minute commute to downtown, where Chicago police say they will not be involved.
The Chicago Police Department does not, cannot, and will not interfere with the work that federal agents are doing.
They're just looking to invade the city of Chicago. This is a part of his plan to do something really nefarious, which is to interfere with elections in 2026. He wants to have troops on the ground to stop people from voting, to intimidate people from going to the voting booth.
The National Guard is trained for war and natural disasters. It can only be federalized during civil unrest or rebellion, and they cannot work as domestic police.
The Guard is not prepared to do crime prevention. That's not the purpose of the Guard. Crime is an issue, yes, but that's why we have community solutions. We have local law enforcement. We don't want to just call the military in just to make sure the trains run on time.
And as he said, that's because the Guard, I should say, isn't trained to be police. Their job is in war zones, disaster response, not patrolling city streets. Legally, they cannot act as domestic police either, which is why the critics say if you're calling in the troops just to keep the peace, well, you might already be in trouble. It's pretty low-key hurricane season so far, yet the National Hurricane Center is sticking to its above-normal forecast for the year. But 25 years ago, today, Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast. More than 1,800 people were killed, and the cost of the damage was estimated around $125 billion. 80% of New Orleans was flooded, and despite mandatory evacuation orders, more than 100,000 people stayed behind, adding to more problems. That prompted a huge response from disaster response organizations across the world, including right here in Idaho. On this day in history, Red Cross of Idaho mobilized to help people on the other side of the country.
In the devastating aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, there are now hundreds feared dead. For one local radio DJ, it's almost unbearable to watch.
Coming up, we'll take a look at our own weather here on J105. By the way, if you do want to help out those hurricane victims, contact your local Red Cross organization. They can tell you how you can do that and how you can send some relief down their way.
Christine Simone survived Hurricane Marilyn in 1995 on the U.S. Virgin Island of St. Thomas. The storm packed winds of more than 100 miles an hour and gusts up to 175. Sheltered in her bathroom, the storm hit and took everything. The foundation of the home you see in this picture is all that was left.
When the walls are coming down around you and you hear the roof peeling away, there's nothing like it. You honestly don't know if you're going to make it through the night or the day.
With so many hundreds of thousands in that same situation right now, the Idaho chapter of the American Red Cross has already mobilized. This morning it sent 2 emergency response teams and volunteers to the disaster zone.
They'll be going directly into the most affected areas that we can get into first, trying to, of course, keep their safety at mind, all at the same time trying to help as many people as possible.
If people want to donate anything, for now the Red Cross says cash donations are best. They save time and go right to the people that need it.
It's Christine with you on this Tuesday afternoon.
Meanwhile, Simone says she's sympathetic to the people in New Orleans, Mississippi, and Alabama. She knows what it's like to lose everything.
I think going through it is harder. The rebuilding, you're so focused on rebuilding and helping your friends and neighbors, you don't have time to mourn.
Well, the American Red Cross, or Idaho chapter of the American Red Cross, continues to support people caught in natural disasters. The organization has sent response units and volunteers to help after multiple hurricanes since Katrina happened 20 years ago. That hurricane, by the way, still considered the most costly natural disaster in American history. It even hit our wallets here in Idaho. Gulf of Mexico was and is a major producer of our country's crude oil, and almost immediately we started seeing gas prices jumping by the nickel, then by the dime, even more so when just days later, Hurricane Rita hit the Texas-Louisiana coast, which is why about a month after that, in 2005, KTVB reporter Adam Atchison told us how the loss of oil and gas production from the Gulf had us here in Idaho paying a lot more than we were used to paying at the pump.
It's becoming a necessary evil, paying big bucks to fill up at the pump. Just weeks ago, the devastation from Hurricane Katrina caused gas prices to soar. AAA Idaho says drivers here in the state are paying about $2.90 per gallon on average. But as oil refineries in the Gulf hunker down for another direct hit, Rita could fuel even more pain at the pump.
Most definitely.
AAA Idaho says prices may be over $3 a gallon in the U.S. again. But the storms could also spark higher prices on your gas bill.
Where Rita is targeted, Galveston, Houston area, is the primary production for both natural gas and oil in the United States.
Idaho Public Utilities Commission spokesman Gene Fadness says the anticipation of Hurricane Rita's arrival is already driving up natural gas prices. Fadness says the commission only adjusts rates once per year, so if there's an impact on Idaho prices, consumers will likely feel it next fall.
We'll see an impact in about a year, unless the market is so volatile that the company comes in, say, twice a year instead of once a year. Hopefully it won't be as strong as they predict it will be, and it won't do as much damage.
$3.92, I think most of us would welcome those types of gas prices right now. I think we're sitting at like $3.50 right now, $3.50 a gallon, right? Am I checking that correctly? Yeah. $2.92 is what they were saying back then. So yeah, we would welcome those. So far this year, we've had 6 named storms out in the Atlantic, but Aaron has been the only hurricane to develop, which is good news. But NOAA says we're only about halfway through hurricane season, and the second half is usually much busier. You know, lots of kids love baseball. Doesn't matter if it's just throwing the ball around the backyard or watching the major leaguers under the lights. It can be magical. And for a little boy named Brian Cofield, that magic was everything. He lived for the game. But Brian's story took a heartbreaking turn 32 years ago when he was just 7 years old. His mom, Leslie, was left with the grief no parent ever wants to know. Yet even in the middle of that pain, she found a way to turn her son's loss into someone else's second chance. And because of Brian, 2 people were able to see again. And this week on a baseball diamond in Hillsboro, Oregon, Brian's memory stepped up to the mound.
Every little kid loves baseball. That includes Brian Cofield.
He was into baseball major. He loved baseball.
Which is why his mom, Leslie, was so tickled to throw out the first pitch at Thursday's Hillsboro Hops game.
Whoa!
This was all for Brian. 32 years ago, he passed away after an accident. He was just 7.
When I heard my son's name, it was just like, oh, that was everything.
Leslie asked doctors if Brian could donate some of his organs, and they said yes, his corneas and heart valves.
People had their sight restored from his corneas.
Knowing that fueled Leslie to spend the next 30 years volunteering for Vision Gift, the eye bank for Oregon and Southwest Washington. Karina Patzer is grateful for her partnership.
I think we hear a lot of stories about recipients, and you don't see as much how it impacts donor families. And I think Leslie is a perfect example of that and how much it's meant to her.
On this night, many others gathered to watch a game and honor the donors who gave them the gift of life, like Jeannie Leeson. She received a liver transplant 2 years ago.
How many people go on the transplant list every day, and how many people die every day for not getting a transplant? It's very humbling to me. It makes me cry to think that I got this amazing gift.
Kristen Bird knows about gifts.
And so it's a gift to know that we were able to donate his organs to help other people.
Her son Jaden died 2 years ago in a car crash. He had just turned 18 and chose to be a donor.
It fulfills my heart knowing that his heart's out there still beating to help somebody else.
Deciding to be an organ donor is one thing, but advocates say a key part of that is telling loved ones about your decision so they can be prepared for their part.
And at the time of a loss, we have to talk to a family, and if they haven't had that conversation, it's more difficult.
Nothing about loss is ever easy, even in moments like this, when the shadows grow long on a baseball field and life, for just a moment, seems simple. But Leslie knows somewhere, 2 people are watching it all through her son's eyes. In Hillsborough, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Leslie says every time she tells Brian's story, it feels like he's still with her. And every time someone says yes to organ donation, that ripple of hope keeps moving forward. And for Leslie, hearing her son's name called again, well, that was enough to know his story is still being written.
Well, it has been a hot and dry day in the Treasure Valley this morning and afternoon. Good news for the Spirit of Boise there, but storm activity has picked up in other parts around the region. Looking at Central Mountains, those storms initiated earlier this afternoon, traveling south, just about reaching the Magic Valley right now. Twin Falls may encounter some spot storms and rain in the next 30 minutes or so, already rolling through the Gooding-Jerome area. Eastern Oregon also seeing some of that action. These storms did pack a punch yesterday with some small hail. Today they had a severe thunderstorm warning that was issued about an hour ago, lasting until 5:30 because of torrential rain occurring, as well as the possibility of hail again, possibly up to the size of a quarter around in diameter. Looking at Treasure Valley, again, pretty mild. Most of the thing that we're dealing with is that smoke outside. 88 degrees. It has gotten very hot this afternoon, but that wildfire smoke is mostly coming from this emigrant fire on the western half of Oregon. That smoke is traveling east, reaching central Idaho, and then traveling through the Treasure Valley and the Magic Valley as well. We're going to look at this for the next day or so. This smoke may settle overnight tonight, closer to the surface, so we could see even smokier conditions tomorrow afternoon. Hopefully it does start to push out towards the end of the weekend. One reason being because we have this ridge of high pressure that will build into the Pacific Northwest. Now, as this spins in that clockwise motion and that smoke is coming from western Oregon traveling east, hopefully this system continues to push that wildfire smoke further north and it starts to clear out so that we're not dealing with it the entire Labor Day weekend. That ridge of high pressure is also going to dry us out even further, so we're not really looking at storm chances tomorrow. It's also going to bring our temperatures up. So 90s is what we're expecting in Boise and throughout the Treasure Valley, Magic Valley in the mid 80s, and mountains a little bit more comfortable in the low 80s, possibly upper 70s in areas like Stanley. So patchy smoke tomorrow. Expect that to linger for most of the day. By Sunday, we're pushing the mid 90s, so it will be a very hot and dry Labor Day for Boise and the Treasure Valley. Looking at 90s and lots of sunshine for the rest of the work week.
Not much has been found of Travis Decker since the bodies of his 3 daughters were found in a Wenatchee, Washington campground. But that could change depending on possible evidence found near that campground. And both Idaho City and Highway 21, or the one leading to it, I should say, are digging out from this week's heavy rains. One has been faster than the other. Here's Abby Davis with the 411.
Authorities may have found new clues in the search for Travis Decker. The FBI says it recovered several items it considers, quote, potential evidence during the search of a campground west of Leavenworth. The search last weekend involved more than 100 people who scoured nearly 250 acres. Items collected during the search are being tested to determine whether they are tied to the case. The area is near where Decker's 3 daughters were found dead back in June. A $20,000 reward remains on the table for information leading to Decker's arrest. An update on Idaho City's water outage. The city says they have 1 of 3 sand bays filled and are sending water to the storage tank at the water plant. Crews are starting to fill a second sand bay. The city adds the storage tank at the water plant is filling, saying as soon as it is at a sufficient volume, they will start sending water to the main storage tank. And once they get 10 feet of water in that tank, they say they will turn the water onto the highway area. At that time, they'll monitor it. And if everything is working, they'll turn it off from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. to help fill the storage tank overnight. Highway 21 is back open after landslides closed a portion of it earlier this week from Grand Jean to Banner Summit. Heavy rains caused debris to slide into the roadway. Crews spent the last few days working around the clock to get it reopened. The skies were clear enough this morning for dozens of balloons to take off from Ann Morrison Park for the 3rd day of the Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic. If you missed it this morning, you still have 2 more days. Balloons will launch at 7:20 both tomorrow and Sunday. And as always, balloon launches are weather dependent. And happening tonight, the annual Spirit of Boise Night Glow. Hot air balloons will stay tethered to the ground and pilots will light the flame, making a colorful scene against the dark skies. The festivities start at 5 p.m. And the lighting of the balloons will happen at 8:45. And Morrison Park is closed to cars all day, so plan ahead. That's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Davis.
All right, let's wrap up this week with taking a look at your comments. This one from ST in Boise says, sending troops to an American city to intimidate citizens is un-American. And then meanwhile, Jack in Boise says, well, maybe we should have ICE suit up and do a shift on the fire line, something that helps instead of hurts America. That's the thing, though, putting somebody in a position they do not know how to do or are not trained to do, that's probably the toughest part of this, especially when it comes to the National Guard, who are not trained to be police in cities. You talked about the National Guard. Remember the Idaho National Guard deployed to Katrina with weapons to support local, state, and federal authorities. That was a natural disaster. They were needed there to help support that. They also went to Arizona to build part of the border wall during President Obama. Just saying, says Neil from Nampa. I don't remember that so much. I do remember ISP troopers were being sent there, but I don't know about the Guard. Oh, Monty from Fairfield, not a big fan of the jacket. Yeah, well, Dan likes it, so that's all that matters.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.